Hi, welcome to the Rewind the Timeline podcast, brought to you by thetimelinemachine.com. I am your host, the Timeline King. This is the show where we go back in time and talk about all the pop culture anniversaries that have happened this past week, whether it is the 10-year anniversary, 25-year, 35-year, 50-year, etc. This is episode 16, and for this episode, we will be looking at the anniversaries that have happened from July 16th all the way until July 22nd. Let us begin. First is July 16th. This is 78 years ago, July 16th, 1945. We have the detonation of the first nuclear weapon. Now, normally I only cover 10, 25, 50, 75, and 100-year anniversaries on this show, but I thought to mention this one this week because it serves as the basis for the upcoming Christopher Nolan film Oppenheimer. So, back on July 16th, 1945, the United States Army exploded the first atomic bomb at 5:49 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. This was the culmination of the Manhattan Project, which was headed by Robert Oppenheimer in Los Alamos Laboratory in Nevada. The story is that once Oppenheimer saw the bomb explode and the giant mushroom cloud that resulted, he said, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Oppenheimer actually took this quote from the Hindu text called the Bhagavad Gita, which he studied in college. In the Gita, the god known as Krishna reveals his true form to Arjuna, who at this point in the story is hesitating about going into war. When Krishna shows his real image, he says, "I am all powerful time which destroys all things, and I have come here to slay these men. Even if thou dost not fight, all the warriors facing thee shall die." Now, Krishna's intention with that quote is that Arjuna does not need to fear death on the battle because Krishna is the one that controls all life. These men will die with or without Arjuna because that is their destiny. So I think Oppenheimer didn't really understand the intent behind that quote. He basically thinks, "I have taken Krishna's place as the destroyer of all things. I am become death." Now, thankfully, like Oppenheimer never became death. The U.S. has rarely used nuclear weapons after World War II. I'll be interested to see how the movie Oppenheimer deals with this incident. Like, as of this recording, I still haven't seen it, but Nolan is a good director, and I've liked most of his movies, so I think he will tackle this well. I'm looking forward to seeing how this movie portrays the atomic bomb detonation that happened 78 years ago. All right, next, let's move on to July 17th. First is 25 years ago, July 17th, 1998. We have the release of the film The Mask of Zorro. Um, the character of Zorro debuted over a century ago. His first appearance was in the magazine All Story Weekly, Volume 100, Number 2, which was released on Saturday, August 9th, 1919. In that magazine issue, Zorro made his debut in the story The Curse of Capistrano by pulp writer Johnston McCulley. Now, 1919 was the days before like television and the internet, so the only way most people were able to occupy themselves was with reading. And this character of Zorro quickly became a fan favorite that he appeared in several more stories by McCulley. In fact, it was only just a year after this magazine debut that Zorro was adapted in the movie the 1920 movie The Mark of Zorro, starring Douglas Fairbanks. Now, Zorro, as played by Fairbanks, is really what cemented the character in popular consciousness. The movie Zorro was all clad in black. He was a swashbuckler. He was a charismatic fighter, and in one way or another, since 1920, Zorro has pretty much always been around. This 1990 movie, The Mask of Zorro, was my personal introduction to the character. I think I saw it in school. It was probably in like history class, and my teacher had just finished talking about the Mexican Revolution, so they showed us this movie as like a fun way to get us engaged. I remember liking the movie. I sadly have not seen it since, but I always felt like Zorro was a cool character. Fun fact: Zorro was actually one of the inspirations for Batman, and the word Zorro is actually Spanish for fox, and the flying fox is a type of bat. So there you go. You also get an etymology lesson as well here on this podcast. Happy 25 years to The Mask of Zorro. Um, Next is also 25 years ago, July 17th, 1998 as well. We have the screen debut of actress Kristen Bell. By now, everyone knows who Kristen Bell is. She made her mark on television with the show Veronica Mars. Then she was the voice of Gossip Girl on the CW. Forgetting Sarah Marshall was like another thing she did. She was also the voice of Anna in the Frozen movies. And I'm sure like there's a bunch of stuff that I'm forgetting. But yeah, like today's the day that she made her acting debut. It was as a background extra in the film Polish Wedding, which starred Claire Danes. Funny that nobody cares about this movie now, but Kristen Bell has had such a great career since, and it pretty much all started on this day. So happy 25 years of acting to Kristen Bell. Next one is again 25 years ago, July 17th, 1998. Man, a lot of stuff happened on that day. So we have the series finale of the TV show Family Matters. I was a huge fan of the show as a kid. Jaleel White's Steve Urkel is one of the best characters ever introduced on television. Did I do that? What's funny is that this character was only meant to be in one episode, but he became like so popular that he ended up overtaking the show. Um, Now, the last season of Family Matters had some major changes for the show. First, the show moved from CBS. No, sorry, it moved to CBS. It had previously been on ABC. Next, they got rid of the actress who plays Harriet Winslow. For the first 8 seasons, it was Jo Marie Payton. In the final season, she was replaced with Judy Ann Elder. But the biggest change ever in the show was that Steve Urkel finally got together with Laura Winslow. Yep, after 8 seasons of Laura hating on Steve, she finally turns around and like falls in love with him. Similarly, like Carl spent 8 seasons telling Steve to go home, go home, go home, and now he is proud to have Steve as his future son-in-law. It was like a totally different show at this point. I didn't really like the idea of Steve finally getting together with Laura, mainly because it meant that Myra Monkhouse got shafted. She was Steve's girlfriend at the time. Yeah, Steve had a girlfriend at the time, and when Laura reciprocated his feelings, Steve just left his old girlfriend. It was insane. And like I heard that there were plans to continue this show, that this was never meant to be the final season, that Myra would interrupt Steve and Laura's wedding, and ultimately Steve would realize that Myra would be the girl he was meant to be with. But obviously, like none of that ever happened. The actress who played Myra, Michelle Thomas, died later in 1998 of a rare cancer as well. So, altogether, like even the actress just got a very sad ending. And this show, I guess, pretty much got canceled at the last minute. So, but now is a good time to remember like Myra, Steve Urkel, and Family Matters in general, which was not only one of the best sitcoms of the '90s, but probably one of the best black sitcoms ever made. Happy 25 years to Family Matters series finale. And last one for July 17th, this is 10 years ago, July 17th, 2013, we have the release of the DreamWorks film Turbo. What's funny is that the only Turbo that I knew before this movie was Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, which was god awful, and I think I kind of just associated Power Rangers Turbo movie with this Turbo, so which is why I haven't seen this Turbo yet. Now, this movie was made by DreamWorks, and DreamWorks kind of tends to be a hit and miss for me. But since nobody ever talks about this movie, I'm not even sure if it's worth checking out. So, if you've seen it, like, let me know your thoughts. And happy 10 years to Turbo. Now let's go to July 18th. First is 25 years ago, July 18th, 1998. We have the premiere of the Fox Family TV series Bad Dog. The Fox Family Channel was partly owned by Saban, who also owned Fox Kids, so there was definitely a push for more kid-friendly entertainment on that network. And I mean, it worked, right? I never cared for the Family Channel before Fox took it over, but now I was like addicted at this point. As a fan of Fox Kids, Fox Family felt like I was getting my favorite children's programming like 24/7. However, I will admit that not all the shows on Fox Family were good, and Bad Dog is definitely one of those bad shows. So the premise, from what I can remember, right, is that this suburban family has a dog. The dog always causes trouble, but it is the kind of well-meaning trouble. Like the dog bites a mailman, but it is only because the mailman is carrying a bomb. That sort of stupid thing. the family calls whenever this kind of trouble happens, like a family member calls this dog a bad dog, because he does a bad thing like biting the mailman. So this the dog gets angry, or like he gets sad, and it ends up causing him to faint. But once the family member realizes, like, oh, this dog actually did a good thing in biting the mailman, they would say, oh, good dog, and then the dog would come back to life. Um, this show was like very formula driven, and I got tired of it like real quick. I would just like skip it at a certain point. I would be interested in rewatching the whole thing at some point now, just to see if my tastes have changed. But there's only like a handful of episodes uploaded on YouTube. This series never got like an official release, at least not in the English language. So since Disney bought Fox and Saban, most of Saban's library, I think they have the rights to Bad Dog. But but I mean, if that's the case, why haven't they put it on Disney Plus? I guess maybe they're just aware of like how bad the show is too. Anyway, happy 25 years to Bad Dog. Next is 10 years ago, July 18th, 2013. We have the nomination announcements for the 65th annual Emmy Awards. This was actually a historic moment for the Emmy Awards, as this is the first time that a streaming service got nominated. Netflix. This is the first time that Netflix got nominated. Netflix started creating their original programming in 2013, and yeah, I mean, it was obviously very successful. All of it was critically acclaimed. The acting, directing, and writing on all of Netflix's shows at that time were excellent. Okay, so obviously it was like no wonder that the Emmys decided to recognize Netflix for these things. So House of Cards got 9 nominations. David Fincher, who directed the first episode of House of Cards, he got his own nomination for Best Director as well. And then, the fourth season of Arrested Development, that got 3 nominations as well. And then Hemlock Grove got 2 nominations. So altogether, like, Netflix had 14 nominations for this year's Emmys. And this was just like the beginning. So obviously since then, like, streaming services and streaming shows they've been regularly acknowledged at like the Emmy Awards. And it was all because like Netflix blazed the trail by producing such high quality original content on that day. So happy 10 years to Netflix getting its Emmy nominations. All right, let's move on to July 19th. First is 175 years ago on July 19th, actually the weekend of July 19th, 20th, 1848, we have the Seneca Falls Convention. The Seneca Falls Convention is what is credited in feminist history for like the beginning of the women's rights movement. So about 300 people attended this convention, including many men. They were also like a supporter of this issue. And it was during this convention that one of the leaders, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who would become like a big figure in the feminist movement, she authored the Declaration of Sentiments, which was signed by 68 women and 32 men. And it is in this document that a lot of the rights that women were seeking were laid out, so including the right to vote. So we really have to credit the Seneca Falls Convention for beginning the women's rights movement. And 175 years later, women are still fighting for equality on many things, but at least they eventually succeeded on the right to vote. Now I found this quote from Elizabeth Cady Stanton from 1869. It was like 20 years after this convention. So in the quote, right, she talks about the reason why women should vote, should fight for voting. So Stanton says, um, American women of wealth, education, virtue, and refinement, if you do not wish the lower orders of Chinese, Africans, Germans, and Irish with their low ideas of womanhood to make laws for you and your daughters, to be your rulers, judges, jurors, to dictate not only the civil but moral codes by which you shall be governed, awake to the danger of your present position and demand that women too shall be represented in the government. So there was even a bit of a racist bias behind getting the right to vote. But anyway, happy 175 years to the Seneca Falls Convention and the beginning of the long road for equality for women. Next is 25 years ago, July 19th, 1998. We have the premiere of the Nickelodeon TV series Oh Yeah Cartoons. I cannot believe that this series is 25 years old already. Oh Yeah Cartoons had its beginnings on Cartoon Network with a TV show called The What a Cartoon Show. What a Cartoon was an anthology of various cartoon shorts. They were basically test pilots to see like which shorts could become popular enough to get their own television series. A few did become successful, like Cow and Chicken, Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, and the Powerpuff Girls. They all originated as test pilots on What a Cartoon. Now, the brainchild behind What a Cartoon was a company known as Frederator Studios. When What a Cartoon proved to Cartoon Network to give it like some of its most popular shows, Federated Studios like pitched Nickelodeon to do like a similar anthology series that could potentially like create like similarly popular shows to like what Cartoon Network has. And what we ultimately got from that was Oh Yeah Cartoons. So I spent most of the summer like doing summer of 2020 doing timelines for most of the What a Cartoon and Oh Yeah Cartoon shorts. So I pretty much know like everything in both of these shows like the back of my hand. The first episode of Oh Yeah had the debut of the show's shorts. Chalk Zone, Slap Tea Pooch, and Jelly's Day. So I think now's a good time to like take a look back on like some of these shorts. Chalk Zone was the first of the Oh Yeah cartoons, and it is literally the first cartoon in the first episode, and it was also the first to be successful enough to become its own television series. I like the premise behind Shark Zone. So there's this kid named Rudy Tabuti, right, who discovers this magical shark that takes him into a dimension known as Chalk Zone. This is where like all chalkboard drawings go once they've been erased, and that's where he finds a superhero that he created and erased named Snap. The first episode was very fun, and it like really made me intrigued to see like what other adventures could come about with this like Chalk Zone idea. So thankfully I wasn't the only one. Like Chalk Zone got plenty of sequels, and like I said, eventually its own like television series. So people who've read the website thetimelinemachine.com will probably notice that I haven't done a Chalk Zone timeline yet, even though I'm saying how much I love it so far. So the reason is that there was some Chalk Zone comics that came out with issues of Nickelodeon magazine. So I'm in the process right now of hunting down all the issues of said magazine. That is why it will probably be a while before I can make a Chalk Zone timeline. Same goes for all like the other '90s Nickelodeon cartoons like Rugrats, Fairly Odd Parents, Ren and Stimpy. It's going to be a while before I can figure that out. And then we have a Slap Tea Pooch. This is the second cartoon, oh yeah, that debuted 25 years ago. Slap Tea Pooch in What Is Funny. I will admit that this one I did not like. This short is like clearly inspired by the old Looney Tunes, but it fails to capture the charm and magic of those shorts. Slap Tea Pooch, and I'm guessing they took the name from Slap the Dog. You know what Slap the Dog means. So this one got some prominent exposure though. I think they were kind of pushing for Slap Tea Pooch to become successful. So he appeared as part of like the Nickelodeon's movies logo in front of the Rugrats movie. So yeah, I mean I guess they wanted him to be well, but for me as a kid, this short never resonated with me. And next we get to like a Jelly's Day. This is the last one in the first episode. So this one, in quality wise, it kind of like falls between Chalk Zone and Slap Tea Pooch. So in this Jelly's Day short, right? So there's this girl named Jelly who has her cousin from in Transylvania visit, and they go to the beach. So the cousin is a bit of a weirdo, and he has problems fitting in. So, and I thought this short had like a couple of good jokes, but I kind of feel like they kind of pushed the culture clash between like the cousin that's from in Transylvania and like Jelly's regular friends at the beach a little too much. Now the short is like only 6 minutes long, so like I mean too much. It definitely feels a little too much. Now the premise Jelly's Day continued. They had a couple more shorts, and each premise was like every day one of like Jelly's relatives come to visit, and Jelly just has to help them deal with their problems, whatever. The one Jelly's Day short that I really liked was Uncle Betty's Strange Rash. But I guess I'll talk about that one when we get to the 25th anniversary of that one in the future episode. Yeah. So I mean, I definitely have like plenty of oh yeah knowledge to talk about the show for weeks to come. So we'll do plenty more recaps. But anyway, happy 25th anniversary to Oh Yeah Cartoons' first episode. All right, next is 10 years ago. This is July 19th, 2013. We have the release of the following movies. We had Girl Most Likely, R.I.P.D, Rest in Peace Department, Red 2, The Conjuring, and The World's End. Only two movies on this list have I really seen. So the first is Girl Most Likely. I did see this movie when it came out in theaters. I think it might have been one of my first movies with Kristen Wiig. I'm having trouble remembering what it was about. I think Wiig was having some kind of like midlife crisis of some sort, and she has to turn to some of her friends and family for help. Eventually, she gets into a relationship with a younger dude. Other than that, I can't tell you what happens. I'm also guessing that not a lot happens, though, if I don't remember much from it. What I remember is that I liked Wig's performance. I thought she's a good actress. I thought the movie was funny at times, and I also didn't regret watching it. And I mean, maybe you won't either. If you can find it, check it out. And the next movie on this list that I saw is R.I.P.D. Rest in Peace Department. And this movie is actually based off of a comic book by Dark Horse Comics. And now that I think about it, it's crazy what gets turned into a movie and what doesn't. R.I.P.D. was only ever a single issue graphic novel, and it became a movie starring Jeff Bridges and Ryan Reynolds. And yet, we still haven't gotten a film about much better comics. Like, there's no Astro City movie, there's no Cerebus movie, there's no Bone movie. Like, what is the justice with that? Hollywood needs to get their priorities straight. But anyway, the comic is forgettable and the movie is even more forgettable. I feel like both instances were trying to be like this generation's Men in Black, but it didn't really succeed. Whether we're talking about the comic or the movie, the characters just weren't intriguing for me to care about them, so I can't recommend it. And as for everything else on this list, I still haven't seen them. Red 2, that's based off of a comic book. I know nothing about it. The Conjuring obviously started this whole cinematic universe, so I mean, I'm sure that could be good. The World's End, yeah, maybe you'd like it if you're a fan of Edgar Wright movies. But anyway, I guess happy 10 year anniversary to Girl Most Likely, R.I.P.D, Red 2, the Conjuring, and The World's End. And next one is also 10 years ago, July 19th, 2013. We have the premiere of the Disney Channel original series, Liv and Maddie. Yeah, I haven't seen this one. Let's just skip it. All right, now we go to July 20th. First is 100 years ago, July 20th, 1923. We have the release of the novel The Green Archer by Edgar Wallace. This was a popular pulp novel when it came out. The story deals with the Green Archer of Garrett Castle, who was hanged back in 1487. The story jumps to the modern day, and the police are dealing with reports of people saying, the ghost of the Green Archer has come back to haunt the castle. So this is corroborated by finding victims with the green arrows. Although there's never been any confirmation of a connection, I have to believe that this Green Archer novel is what ultimately inspired the DC superhero Green Arrow. Green Archer was adapted for the movies twice, right? So they made a silent movie in 1925, and then they made like a colored version with dialogue in 1940. And Green Arrow debuted in 1941, so just a year after the colored version. And the Green Arrow's original outfit was very similar to like the Green Archer's. So it's my theory that whoever created Green Arrow was kind of like inspired by the Green Archer movie that came out the year before, and by extension this like Green Archer novel by Edgar Wallace. That's my theory, and I'm sticking with it until somebody proves me wrong. Anyway, this Green Archer novel is in the public domain, so anybody can read it if they want. You can find it on websites like Project Gutenberg, which collect a lot of like the public domain literature out there. But anyway, happy 100 years to the Green Archer by Edgar Wallace. Next is 50 years ago, July 20th, 1973. We have the birth of screenwriter Roberto Orci. Um, if you were watching like the big blockbusters of the 2000s and 2010s, chances are you've seen like some of Orsi's films. He wrote 2005's The Island and The Legend of Zorro, 2006's Mission Impossible 3, 2007's Transformers, 2009's Watchmen, Star Trek, and Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, 2011's Cowboys and Aliens, 2012's People Like Us, 2013's Star Trek Into Darkness, and 2014's The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Yeah, like not a lot of these are actually good movies. The guy also worked on a bunch of television. He wrote for the shows Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, Xena Warrior Princess, and Alias, and he co-created the shows Fringe, Hawaii Five-O, Lock and Key, and Sleepy Hollow. A lot of these shows I actually did like. So this guy's work is a mixed bag, but I think he is talented. With the current writer's strike going on, I think we should acknowledge writers when we get the chance. And we'll acknowledge him here. Happy 50th birthday to Roberto Orsi. Then also 50 years ago, July 20th, 1973, we have the death of Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is a figure who needs no introduction. He's a well-known Chinese martial artist who made his stamp on Hollywood by acting in many martial arts films in the 1970s, such as The Way of the Dragon in 1972 and Enter the Dragon in 1973. He's really credited with like defying the Asian stereotypes and proving that like Asian leads could still be like a box office draw. Sadly, we've kind of gotten a little backwards since that time, but we do have to honor that the impact that Bruce Lee had at that time for Asian representation. In fact, the Marvel Comics character Shang-Chi was pretty much inspired by like Bruce Lee films. And I should also mention that Bruce Lee acted as Kato in the original Green Hornet show, which even did a crossover with Adam West's Batman. So Kato got to fight Batman and Robin in that show. With how much of a legend like Bruce Lee was at that time, it was so sad to see him die at such a young age. Bruce Lee died at age 32, and his death was said to be from an allergic reaction to painkiller medicine. There are other second causes also attributed, like overexertion and heat stroke. Bruce Lee apparently also had his underarm sweat glands removed in 1972, so that he would stop sweating in his movies, because like underarm sweat apparently didn't look good. And so I'm sure like that had to be a factor as well. And then there's all this like conspiracy theories, such as like it was a murder done by the Hong Kong triad, or like maybe there was some kind of family curse. The latter is the latter does feel believable when you consider like Bruce Lee's son Brandon Lee also died at a young age on a movie set. But anyway, whatever happened, today is the day that we remember the legend and acknowledge 50 years since the death of Bruce Lee. And lastly, for July 20th, this is 35 years ago, July 20th, 1988, we have the birth of actress Julianne Hough. Julianne Hough is a famous actress and singer. She's been in a bunch of stuff. The 2011 remake of Footloose, the 2012 movie Rock of Ages, the 2013 romantic drama Safe Haven. Obviously, this girl's a pretty face. I never considered her a great actress, and really none of her performances ever did it for me. However, she is a good singer, and it appears that that's what she's been focusing on for her career in recent years. She's also a judge on the TV shows America's Got Talent and Dancing with the Stars. Happy 35th birthday to Juliana Hu. And let's get to July 21st now. So this is 50 years ago, July 21st, 1973. We have the birth of supermodel Ali Landry. This lady really gained fame for acting in a Doritos commercial in 1998. Even at that time when I saw it, I felt like she was one of the most beautiful women I would ever see on TV. I know that she's tried to do some of her own acting. If you're a fan of her, I would really recommend the movie Replicate. Well worth your time, trust me. Every other performance of hers though is just mad, but for whatever reason, she really gave a good performance in that film, and she was also the wife of Mario Lopez for a long time. You might know Mario Lopez for like playing Slater on Saved by the Bell. Supposedly their marriage failed because Lopez was unfaithful to her during his bachelor party. She somehow found out about it, and then their marriage lasted for only like 2 weeks after that. Just goes to show you guys, whatever happens in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas. Anyway, obviously Landry bounced back. You know, she got married again, and now she has 3 kids. The lady still looks great, even at like age 50. So happy 50th birthday to Ali Landry. Lastly, we get to July 22nd. First is 100 years ago, July 22nd, 1923. We have the birth of Bob Dole. Bob Dole is a famous U.S. politician. He served as a U.S. representative of Kansas from 1961 to 1969, and a U.S. United States Senator from 1969 to 1996, and he was the Republican presidential nominee in the 1996 election. The 1996 election is the earliest presidential election that I remember. That was when we had like three candidates: Bill Clinton, Bob Dole, and Ross Perot. As a kid, I just assumed that every presidential election would be like 3 candidates, but it was only later that I discovered we live in a two-party system. The 1996 election wasn't the only time Bob Dole was involved in a presidential election. He was a running mate for Gerald Ford in the 1976 election. So he's actually the only Bob Dole is actually the only person in U.S. history to have run as both vice president and to have lost both times. And I think the defeat in the 1996 election was really like what forced him to reconsider his life, because after that he kind of just stepped out of politics entirely. I read up on his biography to see if I could find any like interesting facts about the guy. So it turns out like Bob Dole served in World War II, and he took a bullet to the spine at that time. So the doctors believed that like Dole would never walk again, but he did like a lot of experimental drugs and surgeries that kind of like lessened the effects. So he was able to regain mobility and like walk, but he still had like some pain and limited movement in his right arm. But you know, I mean, the fact that he was still able to heal himself and serve in Congress for like 36 years was really like a testament to his willpower. And you know, the guy received a Congressional Gold Medal in 2017 for his service. You know, I mean, whatever your thoughts are about this guy, like, you know, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Green Party, whatever, you know, you got to admit that he did his service well, and he was faithful to his country for a long time. So, and Bob Dole passed away a couple of years ago. So today would have been like his 100th birthday. So happy 100 years to Bob Dole. Now, next is 35 years ago, July 22nd, 1988. We have the release of a couple of movies, Big Top Pee Wee and Caddyshack 2. I haven't seen any of these movies, but I really should. I like the Pee Wee Herman character, so I knew that there was a movie called Pee Wee's Big Adventure, right? But I never knew that like there was another movie after that, Big Top Pee Wee. So I will definitely try to check this out. Happy 35 years to Big Top Pee Wee and Caddyshack 2. And that's pretty much it for this episode. So tune in for next week for episode 17. And remember, keep rewinding the timeline. Bye.